Pokémon is a franchise I hold near and dear to my heart. My first Pokémon title was Pokémon Red, all the way back in the 90s, and I loved it. And since then I've played every single generation to date, all of which left me very satisfied. Apart from Sun and Moon, these games left me empty and honestly a bit bored. Too many unskippable cutscenes, and well done, you fucking slut. You managed to tie your hair back. What an amazing character arc. But the question I want to answer today is... did Game Freak make the same mistake with Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee? Let's find out. From the get-go, I'm hit with a huge burst of nostalgia. Seeing Professor Oak explain the world to me again was a great feeling. As he narrowly escapes a stampede of out-of-control Pokemon, he asks about me. I create my pasty blonde avatar and name my rival Phil because that was my old nickname. Because I used to fill myself up with food. Not much has changed. The first thing I notice is our rival is a little bitch. Why is he being so nice to me? Why is he not implying that he's going to smell me later? I remember a time when your rival was an asshole, and it was an amazing feeling when you finally beat him down. And then you fought his Pokemon. This guy is a pussy. I feel bad every time I fuck him up. Well, moving on. After meeting up with Professor Oak at the entrance to Route 1, a Pikachu bursts in out of nowhere, and you catch it. This is your starter Pokemon, like in Pokemon Yellow. They always have high IVs and can learn a variety of moves. Some would say they're OP, and personally I think this too, so I didn't use my Pikachu. However, I loved having her on my shoulder during my adventure, and thank the nine gods of the realms! The HMs are still absent. Instead of HMs, Pikachu learns how to push boulders, cut down trees, light up caves. Now this is a very versatile Pikachu. Mine has a parasitic Diglett emerging from her skull. Jealous? I'm instantly struck by how simple but beautiful the graphics are. It's no God of War, but the colour palette just pops. It's like looking at the original Pokemon Yellow game through the eyes of my childhood memories. This is how I remember them looking. Not this. The forest boasts dark green tones with sunlight shafts poking through the trees. The caves are damp and brown alongside water droplets falling from the ceiling. The seafoam islands have a bright white filter to emphasize the ever-decreasing gap between you and hypothermia. The water is brilliant too, with its white splashes, ripples and waves to complement with the bright blue oceans. I've honestly never seen water look this simple, but this stunning at the same time. The models of the humans, on the other hand, are a bit too simple, but they do the job. They could have been more adventurous, but then again, maybe they were trying to emulate the dumpy human sprites from the original games. But having said this, I still feel there aren't enough unique human models. Take this laboratory, for example. Look at this room. Everyone looks the same. It's like being in a nightclub in England. But of course, the main attraction are the Pokemon. Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu were the first games to introduce the idea of seeing wild Pokemon in the overworld. Gone are wild Pokemon encounters. This does make the world feel alive and lived in. The Pokemon don't do much except run around and get in the way, like this stupid muck. Move it! But it's a step in the right direction. They could take this concept further. Have the wild Pokemon interact with you. For example, Apom could throw poop at you. You could get caught in one of Trapinch's holes. Sharpedo could knock you off your surfboard. All of these occurrences can start the encounter. They could even implement these ideas into gyms. A bug-type gym with a Spinnerack catching you in its web, or an electric-type gym where Magnemites pull you towards them. And then once you get caught, the battle begins. But can I just quickly add how creepy seeing Ditto plod around the Pokemon mansion is? This was where Team Rocket created Mewtwo, confirmed by the diary entries scattered across the mansion. Each entry mentions Mew and the creation of Mewtwo. There is a vessel in the basement with signs of aggression coming from inside. With all this in mind, seeing Ditto trudge around was very, very creepy, especially if you take into account the theory that Ditto is a failed attempt at cloning Mew, which means all of these Ditto are just kind of a sentient cluster of cells that are only alive because of science, and it's just creepy, but it's cool at the same time. I fucking love it. I got horrible Full Metal Alchemist vibes from this place, and I found it genuinely distressing. With small tidbits of vague information, Pokemon has once again proven how strong its subtle, indirect storytelling truly is. There are limitless possibilities here, and I hope they explore them. But I guess we should acknowledge The Don fan in the room. Where wild Pokemon in the overworld is a great new addition, Pokemon Let's Go, Pikachu and Eevee did replace the classic wild Pokemon battle mechanics in favour of the Pokemon Go style of catching Pokemon. At first I was skeptical, especially when I found out that when you catch a Pokemon your entire team gets the XP, which could take away any form of challenge the classics had. Well, I can assure you that this is not the case. Sort of. If you catch every Pokemon you see, then your Pokemon will be so overleveled that the rest of the game will be really easy. But if you primarily catch the Pokemon that you need, then the game is just as hard as the originals. We'll get into the game's difficulty in a bit, but for now the wild Pokemon mechanics are as follows. You run into and encounter a wild Pokemon. Depending on its strength, there could be a green, yellow, orange or red circle around it. Your goal is to throw a Pokeball within the circle. Depending on your aim, there are good, great and excellent rankings, all of which increase the Pokemon's catch rate. You also have berries at your disposal, which apply different effects depending on which one you use. There are, however, a couple of traditional-ish wild Pokemon battles in this game in the form of legendaries and Snorlax. Your goal here is to drop their HP down to 0 and then you can start trying to catch them. I actually like this a lot. Maybe they could merge the old and new mechanics for the future games. So you weaken the Pokemon traditionally, and when it comes to actually catching the Pokemon, you use the Pokemon Go mechanic. This will add another layer of depth to the whole wild Pokemon catching scenario. Nevertheless, I do understand why people would hate this change, but I personally love it. My only gripes with the new catching mechanics are the motion controls. They're a bit finicky. Instead of curving your arm in a throwing motion like this little cunt, you're actually meant to flick the Joy-Con like Harry Potter.
Swish and flick.
I did find this to be less realistic. Ash never just flicked a Pokeball out in the anime, he properly just chucked the ball. Other than that though, the new catching mechanic is a welcome addition in my eyes because it breaks up gameplay and keeps things fresh throughout your adventure. If you were worried that there weren't going to be enough battles in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, then you'd be mistaken. There are so many trainer battles. Jesus Christ, I forgot how many trainers there were in this game. What are all these people doing here? Just standing around? Well, obviously, but why? Why? Get a job! A hiker isn't a job! Some of the routes are just a slog to get through, which is why I love the new wild Pokemon catching mechanic. By the time I'd finally burnt out from fighting my 30th trainer in a row, I come across a new patch of grass and see a couple of new Pokemon. And by the time I filled these Pokemon into my Pokedex, I'm no longer burnt out and tired of trainer battles, and I'm ready to carry on. Battles in this game have been dumbed down, gone at hold items, abilities, and the breeding mechanic. At first it was a shame, but to be honest they weren't missed throughout my playthrough. It was weird being able to take down Koga's Weezing with ground moves, which did make him a bit of a walking cake, but that aside, it's standard Pokemon battling we've all come to know and love. Pokemon that boast more speed attacks first, vulnerabilities and resistances to both physical and special attacks are present, and fire beats grass, grass beats water, water beats fire, and everything in between. The difficulty fluctuates depending on your desired path. For example, after receiving the Poké Flute, I instantly woke up Snorlax and made a beeline to Fuchsia City to acquire Surf. Because I was skipping large chunks of the story, I was severely underleveled and the trek through routes 12 and 13 were tough. All of the opposing Pokemon were a couple of levels higher than mine, and every battle was a test, but it was just so much fun. On the flip side, however, because I skipped a large chunk of the story, when I went back to take down Team Rocket, it was a breeze. And to be honest, the rest of the game was too. The remaining gym leaders, Elite Four members, and my pussy of a rival went down like a sack of shit. So the struggle really relies on you following the main story and not changing course like I did. Unless you want routes 12 and 13 to be really, really challenging, which they were. Well, speaking of Team Rocket, they're back. Because this is a remake of specifically Pokemon Yellow, Jessie, James and Meowth are present, which is awesome. They were always my favourite aspect of the anime, and I'm glad to see them in an actual game again. During Silphco, you can briefly control Pikachu. This was a really interesting idea, and one they should have explored further. As far as I know, this is the only instance in which you can control Pikachu, and that is a shame. But with Team Rocket's return, everything else seems to be in check too. The story is pretty much beat to beat from the old titles. You get given a starter Pokemon, collect 8 gym badges, take down an evil organization, beat the Elite Four, become the champion, and catch them all. However, breaking up the plot are animated cutscenes, which are a treat to watch. Compared to the originals, the difference is astonishing. Let's play Spot the Difference! Which of these cutscenes are from Pokemon Let's Go?
This is a tough one, so let me know which one you think it is in the comment section below. Of course, with all the returning characters, Blue is present too. When he introduces himself, his original theme starts playing, and I'm instantly brought back to my childhood and reminded of how much of a dick he was back in the day. Especially compared to Trace. More like lames. In fact, the music in this game is just as amazing as the originals. The classic tunes from Pokémon Red, Blue and Yellow have been revamped and are still just as catchy, especially after hearing the trainer battle theme over 100 billion times on Route 24 alone. It's incredible that it didn't get annoying. It still amazes me that Game Freak were able to create such amazing music with so little, and the fact that it still holds up today just proves of Junichi Masuda's talent and the timeless soundtrack he managed to create.
However, there is one track that will haunt me for the rest of my life, and that is the trading music.
It's not the track itself that's bad, but the system it plays over. My mate Sophie and I spent an hour trying to trade a shiny Graveler. See, the problem is you both have to enter the same code to trade and battle. The first time I didn't even match with her, it was someone else. After that we tried again, this time with a more complex code, and it still wasn't connecting. Until I finally did connect, it was another random person. After an agonizingly long time we finally managed to connect, but one question, why can't I just trade with my friends? Why do we have to put in the stupid code which someone else in the entire world could be using at the same time, so instead of matching with your friends, you match with them instead? Sophie is literally on my Switch friend list. Why is there no trade with friends option? What's going on here? It's 2019. Why are we still doing this kind of thing, Nintendo? Or Game Freak? I bet it was you, Niantic. Well, I don't give a fuck whose fault it was. Just fix it for the next game.
But speaking of Niantic, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee have Pokemon Go integration, which allows you to send Pokemon from Pokemon Go to your Switch.
I tried this out after finding out Pinsir was absent in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, and I wanted one in my team. Connecting the app to the Switch was very simple, and it just worked. Unlike the trading, once Pinsir was transferred, I found him in Go Park and caught him. This mode is very intuitive, and after transferring a Pokemon, you receive a mystery box in Pokemon Go, which lures Meltan to you. Overall, I was impressed. I really thought this feature was going to be a buggy mess. Instead, it was just buggy. But with Pinsir, Alolan Sandslash, Venusaur, Poliwrath, Kangaskhan and Arcanine, I travelled through Victory Road and beat the Pokemon League. What a great game, and what a great nostalgia trip.
I should probably quickly mention that I am not a Gen 1er. In fact, Gen 1 is quite far down in my list.
When I heard that the first Pokemon outing on the Switch was going to be a remake of Gen 1, I kinda groaned. Another remake? Really? Kanto again? I said to myself. But for how played out the base plot is, it does still feel fresh. Probably because this is the first time a mainline Pokemon game has been in HD on your television. Something I've wanted for as long as I can remember. It feels different enough to stay fresh, with the cutscenes, revamped gyms, subtle changes to the story, new catching mechanic, Pokemon in the overworld, and for the first time since Heart Gold and Soul Silver, your Pokemon follow you. Alongside this, if you send out the larger Pokemon, you can ride them. I used my Arcanine a lot. I loved how satisfyingly fast he was. But personally my favourite, getting inside Kangaskhan's pouch. Aww. Once you complete the Elite Four, you gain the ability to fly on certain Pokemon too, as well as the Master Trainers. There are 153 of these scattered across Kanto, and you have to fight them all, each of which with a single Pokemon. I personally challenged the Parasect Master Trainer, and yeah, every Master Trainer's Pokemon is around level 75. Needless to say, I didn't attempt this challenge, but at least there's something to do after you beat the main story.
If you were turned off by the new catching mechanic, then don't be. It really is a great new addition that spices up gameplay and keeps things from getting stale.
Like I said earlier, maybe in the future we can have a combination of both. Much like how you take down legendaries in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, where you take them down to 0 HP and then catch them, but instead of taking them down to 0 HP, you weaken the wild Pokemon traditionally and then use the Pokemon Go catching mechanic. That does add another layer of skill because you've still got to hit that Mon with the ball. Well, even though Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee are simpler versions of the Pokemon games we've all come to know and love, I still have to recommend them to both new and old fans of the series. Old fans will get a kick out of seeing Kanto in HD, just don't catch everything you see else it'll be way too easy. New fans will love it because it's a welcoming, gentle game for beginners, and hopefully it will bring in new fans of the series by the time Gen 8 comes out.
If you enjoyed the video, then please like and subscribe and share with your friends, or maybe maybe consider supporting the channel on Patreon. My plan is to release a couple of reviews a month, so you won't want to miss out. But anyway, thanks again for watching. Bye.